I want you to picture a very specific and a very modern kind of torture.
Okay, I'm listening.
You sent a text message. It's important. Maybe it's to someone you love, or maybe it's to a boss you need an answer from.
Right.
You see the 3 little dots appear. They're typing. You hold your breath.
Ah, yes, the dots.
And then the dots disappear and nothing comes through.
That is a visceral feeling. It's distinct from just not being heard. It's the suspension of an answer.
Exactly. It's the gap. And in that gap, our brains go absolutely haywire. We invent scenarios. We assume the worst. We feel small.
We do.
But today, we are going to look at a source that suggests we are looking at that gap all wrong. We're diving into a set of notes titled Divine Silence and the Purpose of Absence.
And specifically, we're looking at an analysis of the Devi Bhagavatam. For those who maybe haven't spent time in Eastern philosophy, this is a foundational text. It's about the Divine Mother or the goddess.
So it views the ultimate creative power of the universe as feminine.
As a mother.
Yeah. Which, that changes the dynamic immediately. Because if you're asking the universe for help and you see it as just this cold mechanical machine, silence just means the machine's broken.
Right.
But if you view the universe as a mother, silence feels personal. It feels like a choice.
That's the tension. That's exactly the tension we are exploring today. The source material focuses on this one narrative episode called When the Goddess Did Not Appear.
And that title alone is a disruption, isn't it? In almost every myth, every superhero movie, the faithful call and the savior arrives. That's the deal.
It's the contract. It's transactional. I pay with my devotion. You pay with salvation.
But this text just breaks that contract right out of the gate. The specific line from the notes that really hooked me was this: there are moments when divine silence feels louder than any response.
This is a powerful observation.
Louder than any response.
It makes sense, though. Noise blends in. Silence. Yeah. Silence stands out. So let's set the stage here. The notes describe a situation of cosmic stakes. It says the gods call. And it notes very clearly that the imbalance is clear. And just to clarify for you listening, when these texts say the gods are calling, we're not talking about petty grievances.
Right. Not, I can't find my keys.
No. Imbalance in this context usually means the fundamental laws of reality are being violated, chaos is winning, the house is literally on fire.
So the alarm is legitimate, the distress signal is valid, the gods do what they're supposed to do. They call for the Devi, they call for the mother to come fix it.
And the expectation is immediate intervention, as it should be. You see a fire, you expect the fire department.
But she doesn't. The source explicitly says the goddess does not appear, not immediately. Now I want to pause here because to the modern ear, and honestly to my ear, this sounds like negligence.
Of course.
If you have the power to stop suffering and you don't do it immediately, isn't that a moral failing?
That is exactly where our, human emotional response collides with the philosophical depth of this text. The source acknowledges that feeling. It says, what feels like absence is often mistaken as neglect.
We interpret the delay as indifference. We think she doesn't care.
Or she isn't listening. But the text says that's a mistake. It's a misinterpretation of the data, and this is where it pivots to its central thesis, which is, but this silence is deliberate.
Okay, but deliberate acts of withholding can still be cruel.
Yeah.
I mean, I can deliberately not feed my cat. That doesn't make it a lesson.
Right, it makes you a bad pet owner.
Exactly. So what is the justification here? Why would a benevolent force choose silence when the world is burning?
This is where we have to slow down and really look at the definitions the text gives us. It introduces a binary distinction that I think is brilliant. It distinguishes between reassuring fear and restoring order.
Okay. The Devi does not arrive to reassure fear. She arrives to restore order.
Think about that for a second.
I am, and I'm trying to parse the difference, because if I'm the one in fear, having my order restored would feel very reassuring. Aren't they the same result?
Not necessarily.
Right.
In fact, they can be mutually exclusive in the short term. Let's use a medical analogy. You come into the ER with a shattered leg. You are screaming in pain. You are terrified. Reassuring your fear means giving you morphine. It means holding your hand and saying, it's okay, the pain will stop. And that's important, but that doesn't fix the leg.
True.
Restoring order means resetting the bone. And resetting the bone might actually hurt more for a moment. It requires a certain clinical detachment from the doctor.
So you're saying if the doctor is too busy crying with me, she can't focus on the bone?
She can't do her job. And the goddess in this story is the surgeon scrubbing in. The source says, order cannot be restored until understanding matures.
Until understanding matures. That puts the burden back on the gods who are calling. It suggests that even though they were calling for help, they weren't actually ready to be helped.
Or maybe they didn't understand the nature of the help they actually needed. Think about it. If the goddess appears instantly and just smites the demons, what have the gods learned?
That mom will always come clean up the mess.
Exactly. They've learned that they can be careless, let chaos in, and someone else will fix it. The imbalance would just happen again. The order wouldn't be restored, only the comfort would.
So the silence forces them to sit with the consequences, to look at the burning house and ask, how did we let this happen, instead of just screaming, fire?
That's it. The text calls this instruction. It says, in this moment, silence was not emptiness. It was instruction.
I have to be honest, though, that sounds great on in a deep dive. But when you are in the middle of it, when you are the one waiting for the test results, silence does not feel like instruction. It feels like torture.
It does. And I don't think the text denies the pain of it. It just reframes the purpose of it. Think about the silence of a good therapist.
Okay.
You go to a therapist, you rant for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And you stop. And you look at the therapist.
Mm.
And they just look back. They don't nod. They don't immediately validate you. They just hold the silence.
That is the most uncomfortable feeling in the world.
It is.
Mm.
But what happens in that silence? You start to hear the echo of what you just said. You start to hear how defensive you sound. You start to fill the silence with corrections. Well, I guess I wasn't totally right.
Maybe I overreacted. The silence acts as a mirror.
Precisely. If the therapist had jumped in immediately with, oh, you poor thing, you never would have had that realization. The silence removes external validation, forcing you to find your own.
And the text is saying the gods needed that mirror. They needed the silence to reflect their own inadequacy back at them so they could grow past it.
Which leads to what, for me, is the most provocative line in the source material.
I think I know which one you mean.
That says the call was heard, but the response waited. And the reason? Because some answers arrive only after the question itself becomes worthy.
After the question itself becomes worthy, I struggled with this line. It feels a little elitist.
Ah, so?
Like, oh, you didn't ask nicely enough, so I'm not going to help you. If I'm drowning, help is the only question I have. Does it have to be poetic?
I don't think it's about poetry or etiquette. I think it's about capacity. It's about the structural integrity of the person asking.
Unpack that for me.
Okay, imagine you have a thimble, and you're asking for the ocean. You are begging, give me the ocean. If the ocean answers you, what happens?
I get crushed.
Yeah.
Or the water just spills everywhere and is wasted.
Right. Your vessel isn't worthy of the answer yet, not because you're a bad person, but because you're too small. The worthy question isn't about being polite. It's about expansion. The silence is the time you're forced to expand. You have to grow from a thimble into a bucket.
So the gods were asking for a solution that they couldn't handle yet, physically or spiritually.
That's the implication. They were asking from a place of panic. Panic is small. It's constricted. The goddess brings order, which is vast. You can't fit order inside panic. The panic has to burn itself out first.
That reframes waiting entirely. We see waiting as passive. I'm just standing here checking my watch. But this suggests waiting is an active, transformative state.
It's a crucible. The source lists these lessons to be learned, and one of them is absence may be preparation, not rejection. If you can shift your mindset from I am being rejected to I am being prepared, the suffering changes texture.
It doesn't stop hurting, but it stops feeling meaningless. It gives the suffering a why.
Exactly. And we can endure almost anyhow if we have a why.
Let's look at the other lessons here. We touched on purposefulness. The next one is true balance requires readiness, not urgency.
This is the one that fights our modern wiring the most. We worship urgency. We think if we want it bad enough and fast enough, the universe should bend to our will.
We confuse intensity with validity. I'm screaming the loudest, so I must be right.
But look at nature. Nature is the ultimate expression of the goddess in these traditions. You cannot scream an acorn into an oak tree. I don't care how urgent your need for shade is.
Right.
The tree has its own timeline. It requires readiness, soil, sun, time. It doesn't care about your urgency.
So the divine operates on the timeline of an oak tree, not an Amazon delivery driver.
And that is incredibly frustrating for us because we're finite. We want things now. But restoring order, true cosmic order, is an organic process. It can't be rushed.
The final lesson listed here is, not every call demands an immediate response.
This is about boundaries and hierarchy. The gods calling for the Devi had forgotten who was in charge. They thought she was a vending machine. Put in a prayer, get out a miracle.
And the silence was the machine eating their dollar.
The silence was the reminder. that she is not a machine. She is a conscious agent with her own will, her own timing, and a better view of the board.
It humbles the ego. It reminds you that you aren't the center of the story.
And that humility is likely the final step in making the question worthy. Arrogance demands. Humility seeks.
So let's talk about the outcome. Because the story doesn't end with silence. The goddess does eventually appear. But the notes include this little teaser. It says, "Another moment follows, where waiting reshapes destiny itself."
Reshapes destiny. That's the payoff. This is why you endure the silence.
It suggests the outcome is actually different because of the delay.
Yes. Think about it. If the answer had come on day one, the gods would have been relieved but unchanged. They'd go back to their old ways. Destiny A is crisis averted, status quo maintained.
Which means the crisis would probably happen again.
Right. But because they waited, because they sat in the silence and panicked, and then reflected, and then matured. When the answer finally comes on day 50, they are different beings. Destiny B is crisis solved, consciousness elevated.
So the silence is actually a mechanism for upgrading your destiny.
It's the difference between patching a tire and inventing a wheel that doesn't go flat. The patch is quick. The invention takes time. The goddess is interested in the invention.
That's hopeful. It's hard, but it's hopeful. It suggests that if I'm in a period of silence right now, I'm not just losing time.
You're not. The destiny is being reshaped into something that might be better than what you're asking for. You might be asking for the patch. The silence is forcing you to wait for the invention.
But let's be real for a second. We are talking about divine silence. But for a listener who maybe isn't religious or isn't sure about the whole goddess thing, does this logic still hold up?
I absolutely think it does. Even if you strip away the theology, look at it purely psychologically. If you're in a crisis and you react immediately with your first instinct, you often make it worse. You're reacting out of fear.
We see that all the time. Panic selling in the stock market. Angry emails sent at 2 a.m.
Exactly. The silence. Taking that pause, stepping back, waiting for the emotions to cool so logic can kick in. That is always where order comes from. The mechanism is the same. The pause is where maturity happens.
So the goddess in the story could just be the higher part of our own brain telling the lizard brain to shut up for a minute.
That's a very valid interpretation. The Devi is the wisdom that knows instant gratification is usually a trap.
We've covered a lot here, from the gods screaming for help to the worthy question. It's a short text, but it is so dense.
It challenges the fundamental rhythm of our lives. We are stimulus-response creatures. We want to close the loop. This text asks us to leave the loop open for a while.
And to trust what enters that open space.
And to trust that the open space isn't empty. It's full of instruction.
As we close out, I want to leave you with that challenge. We all have an area of our life that is silent right now, a place where things aren't moving.
And the instinct is to fill it, to make noise, to distract yourself.
But the takeaway today is to do the opposite, to lean into it.
And then ask yourself the hard question. If this silence is a teacher, what is the lesson? What part of me is being asked to mature right now?
And is the question I'm asking worthy yet? Am I just asking for relief, or am I asking for real order?
That's the question that changes everything.
It's not an easy concept, but the deep ones never are.
No, they aren't.
Thanks for walking through this with us. It's strange to say, but I think I'm going to appreciate the next time my texts don't get answered immediately. Maybe. Just a little bit.
Just remember, it's not rejection, it's preparation.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Take care.